UFC Edmonton just recently wrapped up, and I am going to recap the entire card. I'll start with the first fight of the night and then work my way up to the main event. To give you a brief overview, I'd rate it as a pretty decent card. Some okay fights, some better fights, some not as good fights, but overall it wasn't bad, and I was happy to witness some fights up in the Great White North. As far as picks and betting wise, it was off the chain. We'll talk about all that at the end. So let's jump into it. First fight, if you haven't, smash the likes, and if you're new, subscribe. We got Jamie-Lynn Horth, who beat Petrović in a relatively bad decision. I personally thought Petrović did enough to get a close one on the scorecards, but it's not a fight that you can really sit and like hard argue, because it's not like it was a beating on the side of Petrović and she did like significantly more damage. See, she had some control. I thought it was enough to probably get her a 29-28, but you're in Canada. You look bad in the third round. It was close in round one. I don't know. I thought Petrović honestly won it. Like, even saying it's close around one, I feel like Petrović did enough to take the first two rounds. You can maybe give Horth the third round. So 29-28. But what's crazy is there was a judge that scored it 30-27 Horth. I don't know the official name. The commentary didn't expose it. I'm sure we can find it online. That judge is horrendous. That judge needs to be at least suspended a couple months, because if you thought that was 30-27 Horth, you're insane. You could say 29-28 Horth, and I'd say, you got Canadian bias. You're reaching a little bit. But holy smokes, 30-27 is crazy. I thought it was 29-28 Petrović, but it's lower level women's MMA. It is what it is. Petrović didn't finish the fight strong enough, and she ended up losing a close one. Some moments for her getting to top position, having some takedowns, but second round, Horth had the arm locked up. So honestly, Horth took the second. First round, Petrović for sure. Third round, close, man. I thought Petrović could have got it because she did finish on top. It is what it is. I'm not going to sit down and rewatch this fight until either one of these girls actually have to fight again, and I got to do some tape. So, is what it is. Petrović loses a close decision. Not one to ride home about. It wasn't a great fight. It was okay to start the card off. Better than watching, I don't know, women's tennis or something like that. Next fight, Cody Gibson, Chad Anheliger. There was no way you could rob Cody Gibson in this fight. Cody Gibson beat the absolute piss out of Chad Anheliger for 3 rounds. He wrestled him up with ease. He took him down constantly, controlled him from top position, worked ground and pound. He got to the back. He got to the mount. He tried some arm triangles. He tried some Darce chokes. I'll tell you something. Chad Anheliger got absolutely worked in every position on the ground, but he survived until the very end, which I was grateful about, because the over 2.5 was a confident pick for me. Now, Cody Gibson was also the pick too, but like to go out and whoop Anheliger in that manner, I was actually pretty impressed, because like he gave Anheliger a beating and could potentially get Anheliger cut from the UFC, man. He's almost 38. Bantamweight division, coming off of a loss, doesn't really have much upside to like do anything remarkable inside of the UFC. There's a chance they let him go. I don't know. He's normally in fun scraps though, and he's hard to finish, but definitely more of like a back-end tier bantamweight fight. And Cody Gibson, I mean, he looked at least mid-tier. He's a finalist on The Ultimate Fighter. He beat John Dodson on the regional scene. He went the distance with Miles John. Cody Gibson's pretty good, and I think that this was his best performance, at least as of like recent memory. To me, this was his best performance. I know he subbed Kelleher easily, but like Kelleher was beyond washed. I don't think Anheliger is beyond washed. Good win for Cody Gibson. Dominant fashion, clear, 3 rounds to zip. No argument there. And, did pretty good work with control on the ground. Anheliger hit him with a couple punches on the feet late, but not much. This next fight, close decision. Another one, though. A bit of a robbery. I don't know. When I watched it live, I scored it 2-1 for Garrett Armfield. Could go back and like in-depthly rewatch, but it's just, I don't know. For me, it's a prelim fight. It ain't worth it. We'll rewatch this fight when tape has to come for their next fights. Sidey was on the wrong side of a bad decision in his debut, and he kind of got gifted one here at home. Even he looked surprised when they announced this decision for him, as Armfield had busted him up a bit on the feet, had controlled him in the grappling a bit. Sidey looked okay, and I mean, he wasn't quitting at all. He was still throwing till the end, and he was landing shots for sure. But I did think Armfield did more damage in the fight, and he out-wrestled him too, so I honestly thought was a pretty obvious 29-28 Garrett Armfield, but they ended up giving it to Sidey, and Canada gets a W. I will say, though, I think Sidey's wrestling got a bit exposed. Garrett Armfield's an okay wrestler, but by no means do I rate Garrett Armfield amongst the better wrestlers in the UFC bantamweight division. So Sidey being really tall, he needs to shore up that wrestling defense like crazy, man, because a lot of guys are going to be shooting. And he doesn't seem to have a lot of power on the feet either, though he has really good kicking skills. He's not a tremendous boxer. I thought Armfield's obviously showed better hands in this fight, and then obviously better wrestling too. Now, Sidey did have some guillotine attempts that he was throwing up, but holy smokes, he was just using the top half of the technique. He wasn't securing the legs in position. Like, you're not going to get a guillotine against anybody that is knowledgeable in jiu-jitsu with just the upper body technique. Like, sure, you could get a couple people. Obviously, I'm like exaggerating a little, but for the most part, now you get a UFC fighter that's experienced. You're not going to lock him in that type of guillotine. The squeeze was nice, but it wasn't set up properly and it wasn't secured. And you're not going to tap most UFC fighters with that. He was trying it a lot on Armfield, and it ended up putting him in bad positions. He's got to work on his lower half grappling. Because if he's going to shoot for the gillies, the squeeze is nice, but get the legs in position too. Come on. Come on, Serhiy. We got to work on that. He's got to work a little bit on the grappling from bottom. The upper body submission attempts are nice, but he doesn't finish them. Takedown defense needs to be shored up. And honestly, he needs to work his boxing. He's like a bit robotic at times with his hands. He's really good with kicks, but sometimes he's like too Muay Thai-esque. It looks like too robotic, I swear to you. It's like sometimes his straights are not fluid, and then he throws elbows a lot from the outside, where I think he's better off setting things up with a jab to close distance and land those elbows. But his kicks and knees are nice. He's definitely good. In striking, he's really good with the lower half. In grappling, he's really good with the upper half. We got to get things meshed together here, Serhiy. But overall, controversial decision. A win for Canada nonetheless. He beats Garrett Armfield. And shit, you got to finish fights in Canada against Canadians a lot of the time, or you better whoop their ass. Next fight, Romanov versus Nascimento. Alexander Romanov looked really good in this fight. Like, I know some of you say, bro, this fight sucked. Hear me out. In round 3, Romanov normally has zero gas. Like, he's dead in round 3. Normally, it's like, finish or bust for him. I mean, granted, he won a decision against Blagoy a few fights ago, but it's Blagoy. His boxing was looking good late, and he was cracking Nascimento on the feet. He outstruck Rodrigo Nascimento. Cleaner boxing throughout, anytime they were standing. Second round and third round, touching him up. Hands were low in round 2, and he's cracking them. And his wrestling was on point. He secured position, garnered control time, and he pretty much dominated Nascimento for all 3 rounds. His gas tank looked pretty good. He came in at 261, so Romanov has been doing a bit of dieting, but definitely not prime form. Remember when he was at like 235, 240? Romanov looked like he was a legit contender then. Now, he's a little too mushy around the midsection. Like, he can beat other fat heavyweights, but as you fight some of the better guys that are in good shape, that actually have power, because let's be honest, Nascimento has zero knockout power. I mean, if you look, he's beaten Dontel Mays on a decision. Like, he's not a guy that has much finishing ability. And Romanov's wrestling and his improved boxing from southpaw was a real key difference maker, because he outstruck Nascimento. So, good win for Romanov to take out a big Brazilian like this and showcase improved boxing and better cardio. I still think he's okay. Like, I'm sure he'll win some more fights at heavyweight, but you got to think guys that have some real knockout power and have, better output and gas tanks will still give him trouble. I don't know. I still doubt Romanov. He looked better in this fight, though. This was improved. If he shows up like this every fight, I'll be excited, but I'm not so sure that he will. Still, good performance from him, and keeps his job on the roster, especially after that bad jail to Almeida loss. I'll be honest, this loss for Nascimento kind of hurt Derek Lewis's stock a bit, because like Lewis knocked him out in the 3rd round, and to see Romanov outstriking Nascimento, I'm like, damn, maybe D-Lew really is washed. Next fight, Youssef Zalal versus Jack Shore. This was my chalky locky, and absolutely came through. I called this submission too, so I was extra hyped because that was like huge plus money. And it was a Degen Savage bet alongside of the damn money line straight chalky locky. And Zalal looked tremendous, man. First round, Shore gave him a little problems on the feet. Like, Shore is still talented. And then late in the first round, Zalal gets his back, locks the body triangle in, and then the huge knee that drops Jack Shore, and then the submission to finish the fight. Youssef Zalal, he made my fucking night. I felt so happy to see him go out and perform, but he's a really talented prospect, and I think he's coming together nicely on this second UFC run, and he seems to have legit top 15 potential, adapted to Jack Shore's early attack, and Shore was trying to wrestle him up early as well. I'll stand on this. I think Jack Shore's a bantamweight. He needs to cut weight. He needs to just dial in and figure out a way, because him staying at 145, he's on the fast track to getting released from the UFC. He's not going to get cut for losing to Youssef Zalal, because Zalal's a pretty talented guy, but still, like, you can't be confident in Jack Shore forthcoming at featherweight. He needs to go to bantamweight. I like what I saw from Youssef Zalal. The UFC did too. They gave him that $50K performance of the night bonus, and he's on a 3-fight UFC win streak, and he's got all of them by submission. Zalal's a problem. He came into the UFC a kickboxer. He's become a damn submission artist with dangerous striking. Love to see it. Congrats to him. He looked great. Next fight on the card, Charles Jourdain, Victor Henry. Oh, this made me so happy. Charles Jourdain debuted in the UFC bantamweight division. He'd been fighting at 145, and he was pretty experienced at this point. I mean, coming into this fight, he was, 6-7 in the UFC with 1 draw, and he'd been fighting all up at featherweight, but he always showed a lot of talent. It's like he just wouldn't put it together against the better guys. He gets knocked out by Gene Silva. He loses a close decision with Sean Woodson. But, I'm still looking at him as somebody that has talent. And he looked really good on the feet against Henry in round 1. He was getting controlled a bit in the grappling in round 2. But damn, yo, Charles Jourdain's guillotine choke is underrated. He's gotten a lot of guillotine wins in the past, and he's got a really tight gilly. He knows how to finish it. Sidey should be training with Charles Jourdain to close these guillotines out and actually finish fights, because Victor Henry had never been submitted before. And he's known as like a pretty crafty grappler. And he's an OG vet. I mean, he's 37, but it's not like Victor Henry's ever getting like dog walked by anybody. For the most part, he's competitive in all his fights. And he had moments of competitiveness in this fight, but Charles Jourdain locks up the guillotine as Victor Henry was getting confident in wrestling and ends up getting the submission. It was a dope win. And a finish for Charles Jourdain is something I talked about all week as a necessary factor for him to actually be taken seriously amongst the better guys at bantamweight, and I really feel like Charles Jourdain's got fun fights coming. I could see Charles Jourdain working into that damn top 15 of the bantamweight division. You tell me right now, you don't think he's live in a fight against Aiemann Zahabi, who just beat a Pedro Munhoz, who's real close to the top 15? I do. I think this is the best decision for Jourdain ever, and at 28, nearly 29, now he's truly prime. It's actually his birthday right now, bro. Congratulations. Happy birthday to the winner. I think Charles Jourdain looked good. Actually, no, it's not his birthday. His birthday's in a few weeks. I'm looking at, I saw 11 months, 6 days, but forgot about the other weeks in the month. Let me tell you something. Charles Jourdain, probably in a cool fight with Farid Basharat or Taylor Lapilus. Ooh, yeah, let's do the Taylor Lapilus fight. Charles Jourdain and Taylor Lapilus, and let's find out if he's ready for that top 15 test. Because if he beats Lapilus, 1,000% in. Very excited for what's next. I'm a big Jourdain believer. I like Jourdain. He's honestly my favorite Canadian fighter, I would say, is Charles Jourdain. Next fight on the card, it was Aiemann Zahabi, who I was just talking about, also a bantamweight fight. And Aiemann Zahabi looked good against Pedro Munhoz. He boxed him up. He beat Pedro Munhoz's ass. Pedro Munhoz's face was destroyed. I have been notoriously a big Aiemann Zahabi doubter because, I remember his early UFC run where he looked like an absolute shit can. And I guess it was hard for me to shake that. But now going out and beating Pedro Munhoz, last fight beating Javid Basharat, I got to start taking him serious. He's probably getting a top 15 fight next. He's on a 5-fight winning streak, late career surge at nearly 37 at bantamweight, but he looks as primed as ever. His boxing was smooth, jabs on point, picked his shots nicely. Pedro Munhoz didn't really have an answer. He was just swinging wide shots a lot of the time. And Aiemann Zahabi was blocking pretty much everything and throwing good offense of his own. And a hard-fought decision win, but definitely a dominant one. I mean, you could do him and Charles Jourdain, but I don't think the UFC does that because, I don't know. They got to save some Canadian winners, man. Can't be matching them up against each other. There's a small pool of Canadian fighters in the UFC that have been successful as of late, so might as well not kill the Canadian fighters by forcing them to, kill one another. No cannibalism amongst the Canadians. Excuse me. I think that Aiemann Zahabi could potentially get a top 15 fight, but I got to think of the top 15 off the top of my head. Let me see. I'm going to bring the rankings up on my phone. I'm not going to bring them up on screen because it's just easier not to do that. Let me see. I'm going to have the UFC rankings right by my side. And let me find out. We will find out. We will find out. Okay. Bantamweight, top 15. Does he deserve a Montel Jackson? Shit, I don't know if he's getting top 15. We got at 11, Aldo, 11 Aldo, 12 Phillips, 13 Martinez, 14 Cruz, 15 Jackson. He might not get a top 15 fight, but he did beat Pedro Munhoz. It wouldn't be out of the question to match Zahabi up with Kyler Phillips, two guys that expose Munhoz as being potentially washed. I kind of like it. Zahabi, good win, and, looks solid, well-rounded, good game plan, good team. Faraz Zahabi's a great mind, and that's his brother, good coach. Next fight, it brings us to the main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, smash the likes. If you're new, subscribe. This fight sucked. There's really no other way to put it. This fight sucked. It was a very low output fight where Mike Malott, for the most part, outstruck Giles, but not so much with his hands, more with throwing a lot of kicks. He was landing a lot of leg and body kicks, a couple punches upstairs. Giles hit him with a couple good shots, and people in my live chat during the Fight Companion were all high on, Trevin Giles cut him. Bro, he cut him with a headbutt in the first round. Not an intentional headbutt, but they clashed heads, right? So I thought Mike Malott looked okay. I think this officially cools off the hype train, though, because he really didn't look phenomenal in any aspect. He was able to outwork Trevin Giles, but this was also the most low-output Trevin Giles I have ever seen. I swear to you that Carlos Prates knockout made him more fearful of getting hit to the head than ever before, because his head strike defense was great. It's just he didn't throw much else, and he was getting chopped up with kicks, so pretty bad performance by Trevin Giles, but even though it's a win for Mike Malott, really not an impressive one. And for a guy that was recently fighting for that top 15 chance and doing well against Neil Magny, this really cooled off any bit of hype. And I don't favor him against a lot of guys in the top 15. If you look, welterweight bottom half of the top 15, maybe he could beat a wash Vicente Luque, who's fighting Nick Diaz, but MVP beats him, Morales beats him, Wonderboy beats him, Jeff Neal beats him, Neil Magny already beat him. I don't think Mike Malott's a top 15 guy. Not yet, at least. I don't know what the UFC is going to do next with him. I would assume somebody unranked. Do we just throw him to Rinat Fakhretdinov, who's coming off that controversial decision win? That could end up being a weird fight, but it's not out of the realm of possibility to matchmake. Just for fights that are popping to my head right now, it's the first one that came in. Maybe. Trevin Giles, stick around for one more. Let's have him fight Carlos Leal, who lost to Rinat Fakhretdinov in controversial fashion. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, Mike Malott, good win over Trevin Giles on paper, but in actuality, it was a pretty shit fight. Next fight on the card, it was Dustin Stoltzfus and Marc-Andre Barriault. This was the surprise of the night. Let me tell you, Stoltzfus got Barriault into a bad position early, locking up that front headlock, then getting him to the ground and then controlling him on the ground a bit. And then Barriault gets back on the feet late in round one, and he's just aimlessly swinging like a moron, and he ends up getting countershot KO'd by Stoltzfus with a power right hand. I do not understand. Barriault walked Stoltzfus down with no respect and was just throwing wide bombs with his head essentially just sitting there like one of those bobs to be countershotted. And Stoltzfus countershots him with the right hook, I believe. Yes, right hook. And Barriault goes down. He's out. And then boom, ground and pound strikes. Fight over. Marc-Andre Barriault was just brutally KO'd by Joe Pyfer in the fight before this. But the fight before that, he ended up going distance in a war with Chris Curtis. So crazy to see the fall off. Marc-Andre Barriault's chin is gone. It was a clean punch to the chin by Stoltzfus for sure, but Barriault cannot eat shots anymore. No way. Brutal knockout against Pyfer, brutal knockout here. There is a real possibility that Marc-Andre Barriault's getting cut from the UFC. 16-9, nearly 35, two brutal losses in a row. And the loss to Stoltzfus, who was 2-7 in the UFC coming into this, not a good look. Not a good look at all. But hey, good look for Stoltzfus. He gets a nice W. Yeah, I think Barriault's out. Congrats to Stoltzfus, man. Grappling always looked pretty solid. Striking looked, clean enough. I mean, it was a brawl and he landed the clean punch. Like, if you're sitting throwing wild shots, it's a 50-50. The coin flipped and it hit the side of Stoltzfus. So, congratulations. Nice knockout. Did they give him a performance bonus for that? Yeah, he got a performance bonus. He deserved it. It was a violent KO. Next fight, the ladies went after it. It was Jasudavicius and Lipski da Silva. I hate how she's going by da Silva now with the UFC. It throws me off so much. Jasudavicius won the fight. Lipski in the first round, her striking looked okay, and I thought she probably won the first round, but I was like, we're in Canada. Jasudavicius caught the kick, got her down late, and did some ground and pound, so I thought Jasudavicius will probably get a Canadian 10-9 in round 1 of what was a close one. Round 2, Jasudavicius got to the wrestling earlier, which was better. And then round 3, Jasudavicius was relentless with the wrestling pressure. But instead of just throwing ground and pound and just trying to beat her up and cruise to a win, which she was doing, she was having a lot of success with ground and pound. She locks up the freaking Darce choke at 228. So all of the over bettors were ready to cry at this one. But Jasudavicius by sub was money. Darce choke, Lipski finished with. I said leading up to this fight, I like Lipski striking, but I can't pick her in this fight because she has never beaten somebody with good wrestling. And I needed to see it. And shit, she can't. She doesn't. Jasudavicius outworked her, outpaced her, outdogged her, and subbed her. Subbed her out, I should say, at the end. She subbed her out. She tapped her. It was good work. Jasudavicius, congratulations on the win. She's still amongst the top girls at fucking women's flyweight. Holy smokes. I'm thinking of women's fly right now, and she's on, what, a 3-fight win streak? Isn't that crazy? She's on, like, this quiet 3-fight win streak. Not bad. Not bad, Jasudavicius. 12-3. I believe 3 fights in a row. Let's double check. Yeah, 3 fights in a row, right? 2 of them submission finishes with Darce choke. The other one, dominant grappling against Fatima Klein, who's one of the hottest prospects in the women's divisions. I lost to Tracy Cortez, but she's run it up nicely. Where's she at? She was 14, 13. Interesting. Is Amanda Hebos booked? Hebos is fighting Mackenzie Dern. Is she back down at 115 for that fight, though? But if Hebos potentially moves up, I could watch that fight for sure. She could end up taking on, like, the Corinne Silva, Viviane Araujo loser. She might even get lucky and, like, get put into a fight with, like, Caitlin Sermonara, formerly Caitlin Chukagian. So there are options for Jasudavicius. She might be fighting far up the ranks with this 3-fight win streak. And her grappling style is hard for a lot of girls. I like what I saw. Congrats to Jasudavicius for the win. Next fight, it was our featured fight of the night, and it was probably one of the lowest level fights of the night. Like, let me look at the lineup. Like, what was a lower level fight? Horth and Petrović. For the men's fights, like, this looked like it was an LFA fight, bro. This looked like the LFA. This didn't look like the UFC. Brenson Ribeiro landed a few more significant punches to the head. What was overall an uneventful fight where Machado was literally moving laterally, right, towards the cage for a majority of the fight, not engaging much. Ribeiro would then look for like 1 punch at a time or 1-2, but he would never cut off the cage. He would just throw power shots. He would literally let Machado escape and like slip out of him when he's pressing forward. Very weird. We have Machado moving like this, Ribeiro just chasing him like that. It's like we did around the world for 3 rounds in this fight, and we're in the fucking UFC on a main card, featured fight of the night, and we're doing this. Low-level MMA, to be honest. Machado loses. He looked great physically. He's won at life. I don't know if he's got a girlfriend or not. If he doesn't, he'll definitely find one after losing all that body fat. He looks in way better shape, so good luck for him. He ends up losing a close decision. Ribeiro landed the cleaner headshots. I thought it was pretty coin flippy. I personally scored the fight for Ribeiro. I thought he won the first 2 rounds, but I wouldn't have been shocked if in Canada, Machado, who's Brazilian-Canadian, had a chance of getting the decision, but it goes towards Ribeiro, which I think was the right side, but my God, man, I think he's going to get absolutely starched by one of these power punchers in the damn light heavyweight division. I think he's going to get laid clean. You know, I was thinking, though, Machado shouldn't get cut yet. He should fight that guy that Ibo Aslan just destroyed bad. Sequeira? Dude, Machado, Sequeira, give him one more shot. For Ribeiro, I don't know. I don't know for Ribeiro who's next. I mean, bro, do they give him Ibo Aslan? There's a here's death. I don't know about that. Well, some debuting guy, probably. Machado's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's 0-3 in the UFC. I don't know. He just seems like a real nice guy, which is why I hope they cut him, or don't cut him, rather. I hope they don't cut him because he seems like a nice dude, but I feel like 80% chance they cut him with that running style. And he really doesn't show a lot of power. Third round was his best round. He was trying to attack. And to be fair, Machado was running a lot. But as soon as Machado would try and engage, Ribeiro would be retreating. So neither guy exciting the UFC forthcoming. Either one could potentially be on the chopping block in this UFC light heavyweight division. We shall see if even Ribeiro, the winner, ends up getting signed. I don't know if has he got a 3-fight deal or a 4. I don't know. Maybe they'll keep him around for a couple more. I could see him in a fight that they're using him as an opponent for sure, because the way he strikes, like I think some dudes are going to care. Mi Yang Zhang viciously knocked him out. I think he could be viciously knocked out. Kyle Machado, we'll give him one more because he put in a lot of effort to lose like 35, 40 pounds. So let's give Machado one more chance. One more chance. He's a good guy. Give him one shot, UFC. Don't cut him yet. He just came down to light heavyweight. Give him one last try, and if he loses and it sucks, then you cut him and he's done. But I'm giving him one more. If it's up to me, if the UFC has got AJ, the matchmaker, running the show, which they should, I'm giving him one more chance. Ribeiro with the W. Man, not a good fight, though. Not a good fight. Next fight, we got the co-main event. Erin Blanchfield outworked Thug Rose for a hard-fought decision, and it was definitely the right scorecard. First 2 rounds, Rose Namajunas won for sure. I thought she was a little cleaner with the striking. Looked precise. She even hit a throw on Erin Blanchfield, which I thought was super impressive. Round 3, 4, and 5, Blanchfield won. Round 3, with wrestling, of course, getting on top. Round 4, she was actually mixing it up really nicely with combination strikes, and I thought she outstruck Rose Namajunas in round 4 pretty evidently. And then in round 5, the wrestling comes in handy late. Erin Blanchfield gets back on the radar of one of the top girls in the damn women's flyweight division, beating the former strawweight champ and UFC women's MMA legend at this point, Rose Namajunas. Erin Blanchfield looked good. She was on top, controlling nicely. Rose had no answer later in the fight for this damn control from top position that Blanchfield brought to her. And I think Erin's tough. It's like she's not going to beat Manon Fiorot. She's not going to beat Valentina Shevchenko. But I think she can beat Alexa Grasso. And I feel like maybe they do Blanchfield and Macy Barber for like a true #1 contender fight for, the next flyweight title shot. Because right now, Manon Fiorot and Shevchenko has to be what's going down next. It has to be. For Thug Rose on the opposite side, I think her and Alexa Grasso should still fight. I think that's a really cool matchup. They've never fought against one another. They were at strawweight at the same time. They're now at flyweight at the same time. Both former world champs. And I think it's a really cool stylistic matchup because it is probably going to be more striking. And I want to see how Thug Rose would do against the former champ Alexa Grasso. So sign me up for Grasso Namajunas and Blanchfield Macy Barber with a looming title fight between Fiorot and Shevchenko, which I think is going to be absolutely dope. I like this women's flyweight division. Blanchfield, she still got to shore up the striking a bit more, but at only 25, she got a lot of time. The wrestling game was really solid. She was able to close that gap and secure takedowns. But again, even though she looked better, she still got outstruck in the first 2 rounds, and it's hard for me to feel any bit of change as far as confidence-wise in a forthcoming rematch with Fiorot if that was to happen. I don't love her chance. If she gets her down, yeah, of course, but like taking down Fiorot is crazy hard. Taking down Shevchenko, crazy hard. But we'll see, because Blanchfield is amongst the elite, and I think her and Macy Barber got to throw down, and let's find out who's ready for it. Let's see who's got it. Good fight. Good fight. Was it a good fight? Am I overhyping and saying good fight? Let me sit on it. Think back. Watching it live, mediocre fight. Honestly, mediocre. I don't want to be too nice. Yo, good fight. Good fight to everything. Nah, I'm telling it based. It was like a 5 out of 10 fight. It was okay. There was okay exchanges. Decent control. Like Blanchfield, when she had the crucifix, it was cool. When she was controlling Rose, like it was kind of cool. But it wasn't a sensational performance. It was just, hard-fought, gritty win over a former champ, which, you know what? That's impressive. Because beating a Rose Namajunas is not easy. Even though her record looks like shit, 13-7, she's an OG vet. Next fight, it was our main event of the evening. If you guys haven't, smash that damn like button. And if you're new, subscribe. Brandon Moreno, Amir Albazi. You're looking at this thing pre-fight and you're like, yo, Albazi's jacked. But he had that cervical spine surgery recently. He's had some health issues. Brandon Moreno has been out. He's been chilling. He's been resetting himself. And holy shit, Brandon Moreno looked off the chain good. He won, for me, every single round. His boxing was crisp. He destroyed that Amir Albazi eye. He was cracking him. He was hitting big right hands over the top. Nice jabs, snapping body kicks. Albazi got him to the ground for a second with one takedown, and Moreno bounced right back up to his feet. His movement was on point AF. His slips were on point AF. His precision was on point. Brandon Moreno looked as good as ever, if not better than ever before. I swear, this break that he took was a great decision because he seemed so remotivated. This Brandon Moreno would have beat Brandon Royval. I think so. I think this Brandon Moreno would have beat Royval. Now you say, oh, but Albazi's unproven, this, and that. He's been injured. Listen, Albazi is a monster. He's strong AF. He doesn't really have a very versatile striking game, though. He's very simplistic. He works jab, cross, body kicks, uppercut on the inside. Doesn't really have a lot of variety and is normally so much stronger and better at wrestling than opponents that, I think he's more confident in his stand-up. But he couldn't mess with Moreno. He couldn't mess with Moreno at all in the wrestling department. So in a striking fight, he was simply outworked by a Mexican kickboxer / Brandon Moreno Mexican boxing style, which was on point. I feel like the Assassin Baby, I want to see him back in a title fight. I'd like to see, in a perfect world, and I'm not hoping this happens, but it'd be kind of cool. If Kaya Skura beats Pantoja, Moreno could be back in the title picture, and he could be a real hard matchup for Kaya Skura. Because even though Pantoja has been Moreno's kryptonite, Brandon Moreno's striking, boxing-wise specifically, is definitely better. Kicking-wise, too. Kickboxing-wise, his striking is definitely better than Pantoja's. Where he ends up losing those fights is key takedowns from Pantoja and just his awkward looping hooks and his insane chin give him an ability to walk down Brandon Moreno and give him problems. But he almost got him in the last fight, to be fair. Brandon Moreno's really good. And this layoff was, I think, the best thing for him. For Amir Albazi, they might line him up versus Tetsuro Taira next, which would not be a good idea. I think he should chill for a bit. Maybe he can fight, I don't know. If Manel Kape loses against Bruno Silva, maybe that fight, the loser of that one, but I don't know how far down the rankings they're going to give him. He won a controversial decision against Kai Kara-France. Now he gets an ass whooping here against Brandon Moreno, so I don't know really how far you can push him forward. I really am impressed, though. Brandon Moreno's boxing looked about as precise as I've ever seen it. His jab was super on point. His right hands were landing. His looping shots were landing. He was rocking. Albazi hit him with a high kick and hurt him, too. Albazi was stunned on numerous occasions, and Moreno put it on him in round 5. He could have just coasted to a win, but instead, he was going for the kill until the very end. He had Albazi badly hurt in round 5. I was hyped. It was a pretty good back and forth, and I would say this was definitely fight of the night. Did the UFC agree and call this fight of the night? What'd they call fight of the night? No, they didn't call this fight of the night. What was fight of the night? They didn't do a fight of the night tonight? Wow, they just gave out performance bonuses. Yeah, they gave out an extra performance bonus. They did no fight of the night. I thought for sure Moreno and Albazi was fight of the night. It's by no means fight of the year, but I do think it deserves that fight of the night tag. The two went after it. It was one-sided for sure, but Albazi never quit. He still tried until the end. He just didn't have an answer for Brandon Moreno. Moreno was honestly too quick and too precise. And I feel like that veteran experience came in handy here. And Albazi's not used to having somebody in front of him that can deal with his wrestling. Even Kai Kara-France was taken down and controlled a bit by Albazi. That was not the option here. And his face got smashed. His face got busted up brutally. Great win for Brandon Moreno. Almost brought a tear to my eye how proud I was of him. Shout out to Moreno. And I think he's making a third run for the belt? I think so. He's got it on his Instagram. Third-time title challenge, so he's manifesting it. As far as the picks, they were really good for this card, to be honest. One with Brandon Moreno, perfect prediction, called him by decision in the main. Lost on a close one with Namajunas or Blanchfield. I thought it would go distance, though. The over was a good call. One with Ribeiro as a dog over Machado. One with Jazz Davicius over Lipski, and I did mention the sub chance there. Lost with Barriault to Stoltzfus. Oh, my God, he got dusted. One with Malott over Giles. Had Munhoz with Zahabi because for some reason I, don't lose faith in Munhoz even though he's washed. I will forthcoming. Had Jourdain as a confident pick with Henry, and he was an awesome call. Had Zalal as the lock against Shore and the submission lock. D-Gen prop lock of the week comes through. Boom. Had Romanov by decision, Nascimento. Had Sidey decision over Armfield. Had Gibson decision over Anheliger. I did pick Petrović over Horth, but, I do think it was the wrong decision, but kind of same can be said about the Sidey and Armfield fight, to be fair. So overall, what do we got? 1 win, 2 win, 3 win, 4 win, 5 win, 6 win, 7 win, 8 win, 9 wins, 4 losses. Definitely good. And I swept my most confident picks, including that over in the Anheliger Gibson fight. Hit on some dogs. I like it. I'm glad. And the lock came through as well. But you know what really was crazy? The fucking parlays this week were on fire. Now, obviously, a few of them didn't get as juicy of odds because the Deniz fight got canceled, and then that Lewis and Deniz is over obviously got canceled too, so it was a straight void. But damn, some money calls. The D-Gen Savage call comes through. The D-Gen call itself comes through. The 10-1 comes through. Look at that. Over, dog, sweep. Oh, my God. We clean sweeped it for this week's Best of My May bets. Good play, confidence, safe. Lock City, another safe one. It was amazing. It was amazing. The Super D-Gen one, which is like over plus 4,000, without the Deniz call with Namajunas, almost came through if Rose was closed. Lost it, but still, if you're getting more than plus 1,000 on a couple, like it's savage mode already. It's all good. So I would rate this as a extremely successful night as far as all the calls, the confident picks, the main event predictions. I'm very happy with how things went. I don't think it was the card of the year. I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm being, I'll say a 3 out of 5 because I love the UFC, but nah, being based, it was like a 2.8 out of 5. There was some lackluster fights. The co-main wasn't great. The Ribeiro Machado fight was mid, but Jazz Davicius looked good. That was fun. Stoltzfus was fun. Malott Giles sucked. Zahabi Munhoz was cool. Jourdain Henry was cool. I'm going to give it that 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5 rating. It was a 3-star. Zalal was dope. Romanov, it was fun seeing him win. Sidey Armfield was a decent fight. Gibson looked dominant in grappling. Horth Petrović is what it was. Yeah, I'm going to rate it a 3-star. 3-star card. Not awful. 3 out of 5 star. It wasn't horrible. It was a decent card. Mediocre card. Slightly above shit card. Nah, it was decent. Decent. I hope you guys enjoyed it, though. We hit 39,600 subs on an absolutely insane stream. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the content all week, the fight companions in this video. Let me know what you thought of the video, the picks, and just the fights in the comments below. If you got nothing to say in the comments, please enjoy the content. As always, W in the chat to boost the algorithm for your boy. Full card predictions coming Sunday, which is now later today. It's like 1:34 a.m. at the time of this final recording for this UFC Edmonton fight week, and I'm very excited for Vegas 100 next week. I'll have daily content and daily live streams. You don't want to miss a thing. Thank you guys all for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Smash the likes on your way out, and if you're new, subscribe it up, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.